Okay, we are up and running. So today we're continuing our emotional intelligence and self-awareness class. We had 4 weeks of this. Our first week was understanding emotional intelligence, what it is. Week 2 was improving self-awareness. Week 3, last week, was emotional regulation techniques. I really liked that lesson. I enjoyed studying for it and teaching it. And today we're going over applying emotional intelligence in everyday life. So this is a capstone lesson. This will be the end of our 4-week course. And hopefully you guys learned something along the way. All these lessons are uploaded to YouTube under the Pursuit Crew HQ. So you guys can find all that there or under my lessons, the John's Lessons tab. So jumping into it, we have today's lesson broken down into 2 parts. How emotional intelligence enhances leadership, conflict resolution, and relationship building. You guys will hear me refer to emotional intelligence as EQ for short, so just be aware of that. And part 2 of today's lesson is practical tips for applying EQ in personal and professional contexts. So today's lesson is going to be brief. I'm aiming for 30 minutes. If you guys can't stick with me that long, hopefully you guys get some actionable steps along the way. But let's dive into it. So in part 1, how emotional intelligence, EQ, enhances leadership, conflict resolution, and relationship building. All very important stuff. I think we are all trying to, in one way or another, improve those skills. So I broke down the first part into 3 subcategories. We have leadership, we have conflict resolution, and we have relationship building. So jumping into leadership, emotional intelligence in leadership refers to the ability to understand and manage your own emotions as well as those of others, to lead with empathy, and self-awareness. So it's pretty straightforward. So what are the benefits of this? How can we gain from this? So leaders with high EQ can inspire trust, foster collaboration, and motivate teams effectively by recognizing and responding to the emotional needs of their team members. So this is more so in the professional context. Obviously, the vocabulary I used here was shifted towards that because when we often think about leadership, we often think about that in our vocation, but oftentimes leadership comes in our everyday relationships as well, whether it's between you and your roommate, you and your mom or dad, you and your with your kids or your spouse, whatever it might be. Oftentimes I think we lose sight of what leadership really is. And to me, it's inspiring others to do better. We often, in professional contexts, see people in leadership roles, even though they are not leaders. They are not inspiring us to do better. And often I think that inspiration really comes from how they act. It's really not a lot of words that are being said by the leader that is really inspiring. Sometimes they give great motivational speeches, but often it's really what they're doing in and day out that inspires us to do better. Because if you are living with someone or maybe you're living by yourself, you can be your own leader. But if you're living with someone and they are consistently getting after it, doing everything they're supposed to be doing, doing the things that they say they're going to do, and continually doing what you think is good, you are also going to be inspired. We call that intrinsic inspiration, to do better yourself. And on the opposite side of the same coin, if someone around you is not doing what they're supposed to be doing and really just living a life that you know isn't the best for them and it's not the best for you, that can rub off on you as well. So when we talk about leadership, we have to be cognizant and not just put that in a professional context. We have to understand that our interactions with each and every person around us is vital to our mental health, our physical health even. We know it bleeds into that as well. But it's just a reminder that to be a leader in your own household and to be a leader for yourself as well. It's so important to do the things that are hard, yet we know we need to do them. So this is a practical tip for us. Practice active listening during team meetings, showing empathy by acknowledging others' perspectives before offering solutions. This builds trust and respect with your team. So I'll keep this brief. I know many really well-respected CEOs that are preaching. I shouldn't say I know them on a personal level from my readings and listening to them on podcasts and whatnot. A lot of really well-respected leaders who their subordinates really respect them on a personal level and a professional level. They will always start the meeting and speak last. They will let everybody else speak before them, because to me, a true leader is always trying to grow. And you cannot grow by hearing yourself talk. Sometimes it does help to work things out, whether it's on pen or paper, whether it's talking to yourself, whether it's talking to someone else around you. It does help to work through some things often. But when you're really trying to learn, that almost always comes from hearing others speak first in that situation when we're talking about meetings. So I just thought that was such a cool point. I've heard many different people talk about it. I've heard Bezos talk about it, Elon talk about it. I've had people who I know who are business owners that I really do respect, who I'd follow them or I'd do anything that they would need me to do. And I've also seen it on the military side of things, where the leaders who are essentially embodying the phrase, do what I say, not what I do, nobody really respects them. But the ones who are living their lives how they want you to live your life, those are the ones who you really start to respect. So it's a practical tip. I think practicing active listening is so important, and it really does help with all your relationships in life. So moving right on. Oh, and I apologize, I forgot to mention, if you guys at any point during this lesson want me to slow down, speed up, cover a topic again, ask any questions you guys need, just throw it out there and I will be sure to pause, slow down, do whatever you need me to. My goal with these lessons is to give you concise, actionable protocols and tools to improve your life, but I can't do that if I get nothing back from you guys. So I definitely encourage you guys to speak out when you feel the need. So moving on to conflict resolution, again referring to EQ as emotional intelligence. EQ in conflict resolution involves using emotional awareness and empathy to navigate disagreements and find constructive solutions. It's pretty straightforward. We're essentially, you can sometimes, not always, but use EQ interchangeably with empathy. But it's a little bit more than that. It's not only understanding the emotions of other people, but it's also understanding your own emotions. So when you get into a crucial conversation or a conversation that maybe caught you off guard, and without thinking about it, it's a lot of these bodily responses are subconscious. Your autonomic nervous system may switch from parasympathetic to sympathetic, which we call the fight or flight response. And it could be in traffic. It could be when your wife walks in the door and mentions something that you weren't expecting. Like, it happens very quickly. And I think sometimes we get the false idea that we only go into fight or flight when we're really scared or we're really angry or whatever it might be. But it happens regularly throughout the day. So just be aware of that. And also, you will get a flood of chemical emotions in your blood from norepinephrine and epinephrine, which essentially is adrenaline, and cortisol going through your bloodstream. So when you are caught off guard, or when you feel like an interaction is evoking a lot of different emotions in you, remember our conversations and past lessons to ground yourself, to take a deep breath, because we know this breath work will switch our nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic just by breathing, taking that deep breath, taking a second before you respond emotionally. And it will save your relationship sometimes. When we react emotionally, it can be so damaging. And I know a lot of us wish we could take back the things we said or we did when these situations arise or when we're caught off guard. So practice these solutions, or these implementations like grounding and breath work and self-awareness. This stuff is oh so important, yet I feel a lot of us do not practice it enough, myself included. So moving on, high EQ, high emotional intelligence, allows you to manage your emotions during conflicts, reducing defensiveness and prompting a solution-focused mindset. Can you imagine that? I'll say that one more time. Reducing defensiveness and promoting a solution-focused mindset. Imagine if we went into every conflict trying with that mindset, how much better the world would be, like truly. So again, high emotional intelligence is a skill set. Some people are born with a higher emotional intelligence. We can't help that, but what we can do is consistently try to improve our emotional intelligence. And a lot of that comes just by being mindful of your own emotions and how the other person might be feeling through empathy. So, practical tip for us with conflict resolution. During a disagreement, pause before reacting emotionally. We talked about this. Ask open-ended questions to better understand the other person's perspective. Then respond with empathy and focus on a resolution that benefits both parties. This ties in perfectly. I gleaned this information from the book Crucial Conversations. It has a few authors. I forget the main one. But yeah, I think they're on their third volume. If you guys are truly trying to better your relationships as a whole and improve your emotional intelligence and improve your communication with those that you care most about, and on your professional side of things as well in your vocation, highly recommend the book Crucial Conversations. It's on its third volume. If you guys want, I can send a link. Definitely recommend it. So moving right along, unless you guys have questions, let's jump into relationship building. So EQ in relationships is the ability to understand and respond to the emotions of others, creating deeper, more meaningful connections. To me, that's everything. That latter part, creating deeper and more meaningful relationships. And so how do we do that? We have to improve on our emotional intelligence, and we have to, and I'm not saying, be this overly, what's the word I'm looking for? Overly or forced intellectual in a conversation. That's often disingenuous and it doesn't work out. But we should be mindful of emotional intelligence when we walk into conversations that we are trying to foster a deeper relationship, a deeper or more meaningful connection. And when I say be mindful, it's really just comes back to two things. And again, it relates directly to emotional intelligence. Understanding and feeling your own emotions during interactions in real time, and then also understanding the emotional reactions of others and how they might be feeling. And if you don't know how they're feeling, because we're not mind readers, at least I'm not, is to ask open-ended questions like, hey, you responded in this way. If I were in your shoes, I might feel this way. Can you dive a little bit deeper for me? Or another example might be if you're having a hard time even relating or understanding where they're coming from, be like, hey, I understand your feelings right now. It must be hard or frustrating for me not to understand. Will you please help me understand where you're coming from? Questions like these, just it gives them the power. It pulls down the defensiveness. There's no attack. There's no, you did this to me. It's like, hey, I'm really trying to understand you better. And when we're able to do that, I know I've noticed in my own relationships that it really does help when you're not attacking someone. Who would have thought? It really helps, but a lot of us don't know how to ask those questions. So practicing emotional intelligence and self-awareness in real time is so beneficial. So how do you do that? Just take a deep breath when you're in conversations. Just like when you're listening to someone, instead of focusing on your response, it's okay to take a pause after they're done speaking to think about what they just said. So really just breathe and listen to what they're saying. And I know that sounds so elementary, but if we're not practicing that, all the bad habits we had from when we were toddlers may have never been fixed, like truly. And we see those. I'm sure we know people like that who react oftentimes like will throw temper tantrums like toddlers. And sometimes we might see that in ourselves as well. And the only way to get past that is to be aware of it and focus on actionable tools to get better, to improve on those things that we want to change. All right. So did we go over this? I'm not sure. I'll read it one more time if we already did. Strong emotional intelligence enhances personal and professional relationships by fostering communication, trust, and emotional support. So practical tip. Regularly check in with your friends, family, or colleagues about how they are feeling and offer support without judgment. That's a big part. Offer support without judgment. This shows emotional understanding and builds stronger, more resilient relationships. So, and I put this point in for a reason. I think oftentimes we really try to show how much we care and how good of a person we are and how much we understand the other person's feeling when it's already at a very elevated level, when the conflict or conversation has already become extremely evocative, where emotions on either side are high, and maybe it's it could be in your vocation with your boss at work, with your coworker, or it could be with your kids or your spouse or your roommate, whatever it might be. I think too often we're not checking in with people to say like, hey, and again, I'm not speaking from a pedestal here. I'm actively working on this as well. But too often do we try to show that, hey, I'm the good guy when emotions are already really heightened and it's almost too late. It's never too late, but almost. And so I just think it's a good tip to say, every week or every 2 weeks, call that friend or sit down with the spouse and just say, hey, like, how are you feeling? Like, what's going on in your life? I know this stressful thing happened. How are you handling that? Can I do anything to help? Or maybe it's just, hey, I want to understand how you're feeling because I care. And if we do that, make a habit of that, then when those big emotions arise, those conflicts arise, they already know that deep down you really do care. So it's much easier for you to foster those good conversations when you're in the moment, rather than never doing that and then things blow up and you're like, hey, I really care about you and you should tell me this. And they're like, what the F? You haven't talked to me about any of these feelings for 6 months. And now here you are, the good guy. So I'm sure some of you guys may have examples of that in your own life. So I think it's just a good tip to check in with those you love, and it will foster deep, more meaningful relationships. So that was part one. Part two is practical tips for applying emotional intelligence in personal and professional context. So just practical tips for how to apply EQ in everyday life. If you guys have, I'll get that link for you. If you guys have questions, shoot them out in the chat right now. If you're just enjoying it or hating it, let me know. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll jump back into it in a moment. Always feels good to take a deep breath. So we are talking about EQ. So EQ is emotional intelligence for short. This lesson is about emotional intelligence and self-awareness. And the title of the lesson is Applying Emotional Intelligence in Everyday Life. So also these are all recorded. My previous lessons are also recorded. You can find that under this tab here or on my YouTube channel, The Pursuit Crew HQ. So jumping into it, folks, again, we have 3 subcategories for this part 2. We have self-awareness and reflection. We have empathy in communication. So empathy in communication, not and communication. And managing stress and emotional reactions. Excuse me. So let's jump into it. Self-awareness and reflection. Improve your self-awareness by regularly reflecting on your emotions and how they impact your interactions. So I think it is a very a skill set that I often do not come across when speaking with others, is the self-awareness in real time. I think it's many of us, if not all of us, are able to look back in hindsight and be like, man, I did not react how I should have in that situation. Or like, oh, I did a pretty good job, relating to how I reacted, even with all the emotions I was feeling. But I think it is very impressive when I see someone who is able in real time during a heated conflict to understand what emotions they're feeling, to ground themselves, to take a deep breath, to have the self-awareness, to realize the emotions that are coming up probably aren't going to be super beneficial if you're just reactionary to them. Taking that deep breath and grounding yourself and be like, hey, okay, I feel really angry or frustrated right now. I need to think about my response before I just jump into the conversation again. And it also will show the other person that you're being meaningful about how you communicate with them, and that fosters better relationships as a whole as well. So self-awareness and reflection. A practical tip for us. At the end of each day, take 5 to 10 minutes to reflect on how your emotions influenced your actions or decisions. So at the end of each day, if you had a stressful situation, you can ask yourself, how did I handle that situation today or these situations today? And how can I respond better tomorrow? Again, elementary, but also foundational. So empathy in communication. So using empathy to enhance communication in both personal and professional settings. When communicating with others, actively listen to their concerns without interrupting. Show empathy by acknowledging their feelings, saying something like, I can understand why you feel this way. So again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier with active listening, to really, really slow down, take a breath, and listen to what they are saying. To look at their body too. What does their body language look like? Are they really frustrated when they're talking to you because they feel this way or that way about you? So to sit there and understand emotionally, to really focus on your empathy and try to bring it up, focus on what they're saying, how they're saying it, and what their body language might be. Not thinking about your response, but truly listening to what they have to say and trying to understand it. And if you do not fully understand what they just said, ask the clarifying questions. And also, you can show empathy by acknowledging their feelings first. Like, hey, or maybe even start with an apology. Like, I'm sincerely sorry I've made you feel this way. If it's that conversation, and it's a very personal relationship with someone, and there's a conflict going on. Say, hey, I'm truly sorry I made you feel like that. I can understand why you feel like this. I don't understand this part of what you said. Can you please go deeper in this? I'm trying to understand what you're saying to the best of my ability. And, just asking those open-ended questions will really help. And so, again, empathy in communication is so, so important. So just, again, it comes back to mindfulness. Try to be mindful. And when those situations arise, just take a deep breath and say, I'm going to try to really understand what this person is saying. And if I don't, I'm going to ask questions. All right, last point, folks. Managing stress and emotional reactions. So regulate your emotional reactions to stress by practicing mindfulness and relaxation techniques. You guys probably know what breath work I'm going to talk about in a moment. When you feel stress build up, pause and take a few deep breaths to regain emotional control before responding. We already talked about this in depth. Incorporating daily mindfulness practices can help maintain emotional balance over time. Again, just like any other skill set, folks, if we are consistently practicing, trying to get better at our emotional intelligence, at our self-awareness, truly, like, look back in 1 year, you're going to be like, wow, I really do handle my emotions better. I can communicate more clearly without my emotions fogging what I want to get across, and my relationships have become better. Imagine if you practice this for 5 years, for 10 years, for a lifetime. You're going to have so much wisdom when it comes to relationship to be able to pass that on. Not only will your relationships be so meaningful to you and the person on the other side, you're also going to have so much to be able to spread and pass on when it comes to communication. And when people come to you, like hopefully one day you guys, if you want them, have kids and grandkids and potentially great grandkids, and they come to you with a problem because you know, or they know, that you're so good at communication and you truly care. and you can really give them some good insight. Like, that's my goal. I think that would be so cool. So a really practical tip for you guys when talking about a few deep breaths, sometimes it's not always practical. It may look a little weird if you do the physiological sigh when you're in the middle of a really heated conversation. Maybe just a few deep breaths is the proper move at the time. But what I can tell you is scientifically the best way that we know of how to reduce cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, how to reduce stress in your bloodstream on a biological level in real time is a breathing technique called the physiological sigh. I won't go in depth. It is hugely beneficial in so many different ways. You guys can look it up, physiological sigh. But how you do it is one long inhale through the nose to fully inflate your lungs, and then followed by one more sharp inhale to really open. I believe the sacs in your lungs are called alveoli, I believe. It always sounds like a pasta to me, and I'm always like, did I just say a pasta? But so one long inhale through the nose to fully inflate your lungs, then another sharp one to open up all those little sacs in your lungs, and then a long exhale throughout the mouth. And when you do that, not only does it lower stress on a biological level, it will also switch your nervous system from sympathetic to parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, which is where we want to be when we're communicating, unless someone's trying to kill you or something. Probably better to be on the sympathetic. But anyway, if you're trying to reduce stress in real time, the best way that we know of is the physiological sigh. Highly recommend it. Really good for sleep, focus, all the good things. So my closing statement in my notes is, by applying emotional intelligence to leadership, conflict resolution, and relationship building, and incorporating practical EQ strategies in both personal and professional contexts, you can foster long-term success and create more meaningful relationships. And I think, that's our goal here, right? Foster long-term success and create more meaningful relationships. That's a life for me. And I think for a lot of us as well. So if you guys have questions, now would be the time. Shoot them out. I probably have answers. If I don't, I will find some for you. But if not, I appreciate you joining up, and thanks for being here. Thank you. Appreciate the kind words, Diver Dan. Next up asked, how do you think we can get to that deep level in a conversation when the other person is not practicing emotional intelligence? Yeah, that totally makes sense. Again, I cannot stress how important and how much I valued the book, Crucial Conversations. It truly changed my life. But how do we do that? How do we get on a deep level of communication with someone who's not reciprocating it? Well, one, it's going to take time, and they have to know, no matter what train of thought they might be in or what headspace they might be in, they need to know that you care. So if you are constantly trying, if you are really opening up your heart to them and saying, and maybe you start the conversation like this, like, hey, I know I have not been the best communicator. I am working on it. I just want to start this conversation saying that I want the best for you and I want the best for us. And that's all I want this conversation to be about. My heart is out there. I'm going to tell you how I feel, and I would really appreciate it if you tell me how you feel after. And sometimes they're not going to be open for that conversation because maybe it's a long time coming of bad communication on both parties. And they may feel like even though you may really think about this and take a week building up the courage to have that conversation, that opening statement with them, and they reject you because it feels to them disingenuous, that may be a really hard hit to you. But you have to stay strong. You have to say to yourself, you have to put yourself in their shoes. Be like, okay, yeah, that hurt. I really just threw my heart out there and kind of stomped on it a little bit. But if I really care, I'm not going to be emotionally reactive to that. I'm going to say, okay, like, I understand. And in a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, come back and be like, hey, I'm here again. I'm really struggling with understanding how you're feeling, and I just want to make our relationship better. I want to strengthen this. I don't want you to leave my life, and I want our relationship to continue to get stronger. And if you are practicing those techniques, it's really just what I talked about earlier. Where is it? Sorry, my notes are so big. My eyesight's getting worse, guys. I need to get real glasses here soon. Where is it? Sorry, I lost it. Anyway, it's really just about fostering a relationship where they know that you care before these big conversations come up. And it's hard when, all of a sudden you're at this wall where you didn't realize, but over the years or over the months, there was a lot of built up resentment, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And all of a sudden you're at this communication wall where neither of you can get over. And now here you are coming to them saying, hey, I really care. That may be a really hard thing for them to hear, and they might not find it genuine. So consistently checking in with them, showing them that you care, and really leading from your heart more than anything else. Your words may not always come out as you mean them to, but if you start with your heart and you're able to get that across to them, and you are consistently doing it, it will in time, you'll start to see change in them as well. And if not, unfortunately, that's just a part of life. It's hard dealing with other humans. It's just what it is. It's so beautiful. It's amazing. It's the best thing, but it can also be the hardest thing. It can really, really be the hardest thing, is dealing with other humans. So it's just continuous work, man. It's just like everything in life. It's anything that's worthwhile is going to take work. So just continue practicing myself and be patient with them, and continuously showing that we care. Yep, perfect. Concise way to put that. Yeah, absolutely. Forever. I appreciate the kind words. It's a labor of love. It really is. Doing all the research for this stuff, like when I'm reading or watching podcasts or watching YouTube, like TED Talks, man, I've run through so many TED Talks, and listening to what people have to say and reading their research. And it's just like, man, there's so much information, and all this stuff is so good. And when I put it into a concise form for you guys, it helps me in so many aspects of my life. So I appreciate you guys being here and listening to me. So it helps me, and I hope it's helping you guys too. If you guys don't have anything else for me, I will let you go. That was right around 35 minutes. So 30 minutes for the lesson, a couple minutes. Trader Joe, man, that is something. You get spray sunscreen, my friend, if you're going to be out and about. I remember when I first joined the Army, it was went to Fort Benning, and it was like 85 degrees, 90 degrees or something. UV was who knows how high. I got the worst sunburn of my life. I got blisters all over my hair, and it was like a 1, so it wasn't like bald. It was just the worst. It was so bad, so gross. Anyway, get sunscreen on that thing. Wear a hat. It's gonna be rough out in the sun there for you. All right, friends. Appreciate you guys a ton for joining up. Today, focus on doing something hard for yourself. Truly, like something you don't want to do, but you know it's going to benefit you in the long term. That's what discipline really is about. Sacrificing what you want now for what you know to be better in the future. So focus on doing something hard today, guys. Go drink water. Go choose a healthy option for your food. Go work out. Make yourself sweat today, and go tell your loved ones that you love them. And if we just did those things every day, man, everything would be good. Better. Everything would not, you guys know what I'm saying. All right, friends. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.